Good evening, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just a simple man, and my name is Noah Foster, and welcome to this simple interview. Here with me tonight are the brilliant creative minds of one of the latest in professional wrestling productions, Weymouth Youth Wrestling. Apologies if I screwed that up. I am tired as shit. It has been a day from hell, and now you know. But enough about that. It's not about me. It's about wrestling, and it's about these gentlemen. Allow me to introduce you to the brilliant minds behind WYW. I'll first start off with James, the Archangel Hubert. How are you, sir?
I am good. I am very, very good.
All right, good to hear. Good to hear. And I see tonight you are with a couple of your cohorts, and I believe you guys are the creative direction behind this promotion.
Yeah,
Why don't we go around? Why don't we go around and introduce everybody? Who's the guy in the hot rod shirt?
We got Mike. We got the executioner in the house. In the house.
All right. He's in the house.
In the unemployment line. In the house.
No, that's always Ray.
Oh!
Well, on that note, brilliant introduction for the other gentleman here, sporting Detroit. Casey, how are you tonight?
Right, Magic Ninja, baby. Yes, I am. I'm the Wrestling Encyclopedia Casey Gallagher, and I am doing fantastically tonight. Going to have a fresh set of clothes in about 30 minutes.
Oh, all right. Well, we should be able to get done so you can enjoy those with time to spare.
Question for you. With that Detroit shirt, do you have like a compulsive need to steal people's porches and have a pit bull? Oh my god.
That later on in the year. Don't get me ahead of myself.
Wait, are you admitting that you do? I will steal your... I'm making fucking mac and cheese.
And no one's going to stop me.
And nobody's going to stop me.
Welcome to the meme train, Noah.
Yes.
Hey, I'm happy to be a part of it and basically just, observe. And that's really what this is about, as I am just here to pick y'all's brains in what got y'all to do this in the first place. So let's just start off with a simple question here. Clearly, your promotion, it's all about wrestling. So clearly, at the forefront, you three are all fans of wrestling. Now, this platform, of course, that you provide is on a digital forum with your own creative outlook on the business today, as you've all made these characters, made the sets, made this organization straight from scratch on a digital platform. And it really speaks volumes because that takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. So with that, James, I'm going to start with you. What brought you into being a wrestling fan to want to develop your own wrestling promotion on a digital scale?
So I guess this is going to be a long one, and you have 30 seconds. Oh, thanks. Who said you had control?
Easy, I'm the fucking world heavyweight champion. That's why I have control.
Shut up. Okay, you can have your hat back, by the way. Okay, so when I was a kid, my first inkling of wrestling was back, believe it or not, in the Attitude Era. And I was, keep in mind, I'm like 2 at this point. And a lot of people say, you can't remember stuff when you're an infant. Au contraire. My first ever exposure to anything pro wrestling related was actually the Montreal Screwjob. At least that's what I remember, because I see the bad guy, I see the good guy in Brett, and I see another bad guy in Sean, which ironically wasn't, I know this now, wasn't the case when it comes to the United States, but it was in Canada. And then they fully turned Brett face, even though there was a lot of controversy behind it. But back when I was a kid, I was just like, wow. Is that what life is like? Which could be good or bad, depending on your... The plug rang, and the hit rang. Yes. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. And yes, and that was my first introduction, was the birth of the Mr. McMahon character. And I know I've shit on Vince in the past, and...
Rightly so.
Whatnot, but as a character, there was no better villain. And there was no better hero to kind of fight on our side than Austin, and I was exposed to that early on. I was exposed to Rey Mysterio in '99. I discovered WCW, and it just blew me away. Absolutely blew me away. And then when he came to WWE later in 2002, that's when I would start watching religiously because a guy like him, showed me a kid that was always very, very, what's the word? Always kind of questioning myself, always wondering, why can't I be like everybody else? He's not like everybody else,
you mean
basically.
being a kid?
Yeah, because I was a kid, and on top of having autism, that was hard enough. But to see Ray basically be the little guy in a big man sport, that's what really kind of that's what cemented me and made me a fan for life at that point.
Very strong story, and I can definitely understand that. Sometimes we need to find that outlet that makes us feel better about ourselves or encourages us to believe that nothing's impossible if you put your mind towards it. But with that being said, Casey, you're part of this project here. How did you and James came to be? Was it for wrestling?
It was actually from wrestling. We met at a Top Rope Promotions house show at the Brockton Veterans of Foreign Wars Outpost in January of 2016. It was the night Nick Steele, God rest his soul. It was the night that Nick Steele, Vinny Marseglia, and oh God, who was the other guy in that team? It was a 6-on.
I think it was Cold Steel Chuck O'Neil.
Yes, that's who it was. That's who it was. Who, by the way,
a former UFC fighter, by the way.
And by the way, is making huge waves for himself within Top Rope as the top heel champion. At least
I see this.
it's good shit, dude. But we met in but we met in January in 2016. And I was thrilled to find the guy that could talk about not just the business, but the insider aspect of the business, all day long and twice on Sunday. He and I, that night, because I think we drove Victor home that night.
We drove Victor and Owen home, I think, and I think another guy was Dorchester. Not Dorchester. It wasn't Dorchester.
It was in Dorchester, yes. I don't remember who it was, but it was in Dorchester.
Well, yeah, we met, and from there we hit it off like two peas in a pod.
Yeah. Now, granted, we only got to hang out very sporadically until an event that we'll probably get to later on down the line. But one of the biggest highlights of our early times hanging out together was we went to it was 2017. I tweeted Vinny, hey, is Ring of Honor coming to the area? He tells me about Best in the World in Lowell. And I think to myself, I'm going to get tickets. And I think to myself, wait a minute. I know somebody who would love to go to this. So I call up James and I'm like, hey, you down to go? He goes, fuck yeah, let's go. So we go, and
such an epic show.
It was
like
amazing.
That made me a fan for life, not just of wrestling, of wrestling in general. And I believe that was around the time where my love for wrestling was waning until that Ring of Honor show. Oh my God, that seeing Cody win the Ring of Honor title was like nothing I've ever experienced.
And I was
Casey can attest. Casey can attest to this because that crowd blew up the minute he won that belt.
And not to mention the moment Cody flipped me off.
Yeah, that was awesome.
He was the American Nightmare.
If you ever saw Best in the World 2017, Noah, and you're wondering who Cody flipped off on that show, you're looking at the man.
Oh, well, wow. I feel like I'm meeting somebody famous here, so good on you. As well, he was the American Nightmare and Bullet Club. And really, he kind of led a new era in professional wrestling, especially in the independent scene, which leads me to ask you, Michael. You definitely seem to be a wrestling fan at heart. I see it for your personality. I see it for your attire. Rest in peace, Hot Rod, Roddy Piper. When it comes to you and your connection to wrestling, what really connected you to the business?
Mick Foley coming down from the Hell in a Cell. This is the first match I watched as a kid.
Simple and clean.
Good God Almighty.
As soon as you watch a 200-plus pound man get ejected from the top of a cell into a table, you go,
what the fuck? And not to mention, his body is like halfway out into the audience.
So. Not to mention the fact, not only did you see him fall through the table, you saw the man get back up.
And then go through the gate.
And then go through the cage, and then get back up again.
Yes.
only to get, choke slammed through the roof.
Yeah.
King of the Ring, 1998, another incredible time in professional wrestling history. That really defined what a fan can look at wrestling for storytelling, but also this is real, folks. This is a human being literally using his body to put himself on the map. And hey, it worked to his credit, though he never was the same again. So clearly, you guys are all huge, passionate wrestling fans among all forms, whether it's the big boy like WWE or the smaller guys in Ring of Honor. You've looked at independents, you've looked at American, you looked at Japanese, you've mentioned other independent promotions, so you've mentioned the UK scene. So with that being said, let's talk about your promotion, because clearly you took aspect into this forum. Weymouth Youth Wrestling. So let's just start off with this. How did the name come about?
We live in Weymouth, and that was it.
Yeah. Well, we came up with the name Weymouth Youth Wrestling because of our town. There's actually a bigger story than that. So it all started with a group of teens, essentially, because I was a teenager when I came up with the concept. And him and I, back in elementary, saw this thing, and I've mentioned it a couple times. We saw NoDQCAW, which was Aaron Rift, who created a CAW league. And we, as kids, and looking back at the production, it was it was all right. But back then, we didn't care. As kids, we were seeing Superman and Batman and Lincoln, all these other guys fight in a wrestling ring. It's two things we both loved.
Let's put a pin in that. Wrestling has always been oriented.
Right.
And that's what we liked about NoDQCAW, and that's what we wanted to bring to the nowadays audience.
Yes.
And that's why nowadays formats of wrestling don't understand that that's what makes money.
Yeah, is the outlandish, essentially, which we'll get to, obviously, and some of the characters we have.
If I look at Noah right now and I say the words Konnichiwa, who's the first person that comes into your head?
Hiroshi Tanahashi.
Oh, I thought he was going to say Curry Man.
Curry Man. That's where he got that from.
I watched NJPW today.
Not wrong at all,
but still.
But yeah, Curryman, TNA, Konnichiwa. Hell, I would have gone further than that and gone with freaking Yamaguchi.
Yamaguchi, yes. Actually,
Shopping, big P. Still one of the most infamous quotes I ever remember hearing in professional wrestling. Oy vey.
What were you saying, Case?
Oh no, I was trying to.
He was doing the laugh. When he said that quote, he was crackling out of control. Anyway, okay. Well, that's simple enough. Usually, a promotion can just come out of, okay, here's where we live. Let's try and define something within our city. I live in Toledo, Ohio. The promotions that are in my house, place of the woods, none of them are named Toledo. There's Northwest Ohio Wrestling, there's Powerbomb Wrestling, and then there's Chaos Wrestling, a throwback to bring ECW to the 21st century, along with some Impact Wrestling influence. But I digress. So with that being said, you talked about the name, you talked about the outlook, you talked about the inspiration being a NoDQCAW, which is all about creativity and originality. What would happen if your favorite person versus this person? Nowadays, we have all these tools in video games that allow us to literally create anybody and anything we want. You want a storyline between this hero from the Marvel Universe and the DC Universe, you can have it. That's the power of video game, and that's the power of creative mode. Now, you've used, obviously, the WWE games to a degree to create this promotion. So when I think about what you used and which game that you used, did you ever thought about maybe we should move up to a different year? Because you use an older version of the 2K game. Ever since they went from SmackDown vs. Raw to 2K, I feel like their creative tools have been their greatest strength, though the reviews would say something different.
Well, okay. As an individual that has played, tested, and gone through these games massively, and data mined the hell out of these, it's more like the fact that it's become all right, so we're going to put a feature in. We're going to take that feature out, and about 5 years later, we're going to use that feature again.
I don't like it.
Recycled assets.
2K14, while it still didn't have GM mode, it did have everything else.
It had everything that we needed.
It had the creative story scene mode from WWE 13 that they still kept on 2K14. So yeah, we use 2K14 for.
Lost, I believe, in 2K15.
Yep.
Yes.
The fact that we could put in our own entrance music, the fact that we could put in logos if it was a necessity, or hack into the console to put in logos if it was a necessity. There's just a lot of stuff that, yes, the new games look beautiful. They look fantastic. But when it comes to options and ability that I can do in the ring,
They're stupidly
absolutely, I'm going to go with the classic game that makes me have more of the feel of what I'm doing.
While 2K14 isn't necessarily classic, it was the best middle ground of modern day and classic video game, because it was really, honest to God, and we can all agree with this, I think, 2K14 was the last good game in wrestling, because then it just went downhill. And everybody always asks us, why don't you use 2K15 or 2K19? Nobody says 2K20. The reason why nobody says we don't use those is because it just doesn't work for us. It never has. We tried, and it just didn't work. I tried it on both the previous gen and the new gen, and something's missing, you know?
It's a simplistic factor of they got rid of a lot of the creative tools that we actually use on the show, such as scene cuts and things like that, and camera cuts, shot cuts, music, everything that we actually need to make things work. And it's also the fact that the roster has been severely cut in each game. It went from 100 to 50 in 2K15. And yes, I know that they brought the roster numbers back up, creative, yada, yada, community creation, all that other crazy nonsense.
But the gameplay suffered.
Noah, would you really want to watch a wrestling match that a nowadays wrestling match that made you look like you were looking through an hourglass to 1985, where it's just headlocks into rest hold, into guys would get gassed out every 10 seconds?
I know I didn't want that.
I don't want to watch Greg the Hammer Valentine versus Bruce the Barber Beefcake. I don't need to see that again. I saw that back in 1986. I don't need to see that now, where I am at a good age where that has become a classic match. That's why it sucks.
Yeah. Casey, do you have anything to add? Casey, do you have anything to add to this?
Not really. You guys covered it pretty well, solidly.
Yeah, that's basically why we use 2K14, Noah. I think it's just the best if you're gonna go between classic and nowadays.
Well, you can pick Fire
or No Mercy.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike, for bringing that up. I was gonna say if we were gonna switch to any other game, it'd probably be Fire Pro Wrestling.
Yes.
But
the problem with Fire Pro is the fact of the creation tool is not a simplistic process.
That's why I like 2K14.
Yes.
The best.
Because the creation tool, especially for logos, is literally just Microsoft Paint.
Yeah, essentially.
But again, to each their own. If you want to use 2K20, that's all up to you. We're going to stick with 14 for the fact that we know the system better. And this system is constantly showing us nonsense that we didn't even know existed.
I'm not even going to lie. We've been recording. I'm only going to spoil one thing. I'm not going to spoil who's involved in the match. We learn new things that you could do in the game every single day, and we've had this game for like 5 years. I drop kicked somebody out of the air today from the top rope. Like, in midair, I drop kicked them out of the air.
And here I thought that wasn't available until the later games with all this motion technology they use and all this capturing. But yet they just recycle old assets, and like you said, they just change out some of the features. More of the original features are taken out to put in just hard play features like, play this is the way it is, you can't manipulate it, just try and recreate this match per se. So I can definitely understand where you're coming from there. So with that being said, we talked about your passion, we talked about your creative tools. Let's talk a little bit about the outlook now of Weymouth. Like you said, I believe, Micheal, you called yourself the executioner, and Casey, you called yourself the encyclopedia. I imagine James here would be the CEO of this whole thing. He basically, are you guys like equal partners in this, or?
I'm gonna do this. Really quick, Noah. The three people that you're talking to are the people that voice the most characters that are in. The whole show is voice acting, which it has not been done before in a CAW league and will not be done in the future. No, not to the level that we're willing to go to make a character become almost the equivalent of I could touch them or have a drink with that individual and go, I get to know more about that person with an actual connection.
Yeah. For just to give you a landscape of how many hats we all individually wear, Noah. I'm
This one.
yeah. Shut up. I'm the CEO. I'm the editor, the full-on editor. Casey edits sometimes as well. Mike voice acts a quarter of the characters. I commentate as Jonathan Caterer. I voice act for James the Archangel and J-Bones and God knows who else. And just there's so many things that we do for this show to be as good as it possibly can be. So
and all three of us are I guess IRL. You would call us the agents of all of our matches. We all play the matches.
I would say it's more the fact that I'll give it to you like this. Noah, I have to ask you one question. It's a question that's really important. Would you rather have individuals in wrestling or factions?
An individual, you sink or swim on your own, but a faction could lead to a lot of potential dynamics. One might go above the other, Shield. All of them might play as equal players and take over the corporation, Undisputed Era. So I guess it really depends on what direction you're trying to do here. Because if you're a faction, you're supposed to be a united front. But are you in it for yourself or in it for the group? To answer your question, though, looking at my history of professional wrestling and what I watch and what I do enjoy and what I see goes out more, I probably would think right now, on its own, I would rather see a company of factions than just individuals. Individuals, you got a lot of moving pieces here, and it could really be hard to find a lot of different storylines, dynamics to come up with. Where with factions, you could have faction warfare, and eventually there could be some infeuding within a faction, leading to potentially a breakout star. So I think I focus more on factions than individuals.
well,
Which is not a horrible thing.
We give you
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what I was going to say. Any good wrestling promotion, CAW or otherwise, is gonna, if they're gonna be successful, you're gonna have a good mix of breakout individuals and factions that go to war with each other. And I feel WYW, especially up to the point we're at now, has done its damnedest to strike that perfect balance so that we have that audience retention for the 5-year odyssey that we've been on. Actually, 6-year odyssey, especially for Mike and James.
from your Sean Maverick pinnacle superstars that have come in and annihilated everybody in their path, to the Disciples of Darkness as a mysterious, shadowy figure that has come in to evade the company, from your Morning Star tag team, which are a concept of brotherhood and lineage to create something in the future, to being the Maggies, who are the biggest scumbags in wrestling today.
And only care about taking the place for themselves.
yeah. And
We're going to take the place and burn it to the ground as the Maggie Daddy Men.
you say, Noah, that you love New Japan for the factions, but New Japan, we follow the New Japan formula where not only can you do the faction warfare and you can do factions, but you could also do individuals not only that aren't a part of factions, but that are in the factions and they do break out on their own despite being a part of a faction. That's the method we want to go with.
Again, your promotion takes a lot of influence from the New Japan Pro Wrestling front, but a lot of your character inspiration takes, I think, a lot of influence from the WWE standpoint, just from those descriptions that you provided me. And yes, this 5-year odyssey, as you put it, clearly you have looked at how the business has evolved today, realistically, as well as the return of NoDQCAW, NoDQ, and you've applied that to what the product has become. And also, I can see you're going to continue to apply that in where the product's going. So with that, you've already brought out a number of huge, let's just say showcase shows. Your biggest one, of course, was Immortal. That was an incredible product. Congratulations on the amount of views and success you got off that. Now, again,
Atrocity that should never happen again.
I'm about to say, here's the thing, though, you got to consider when it comes to your audience. Attention can only go so far. You see how the business right now is hindered because of that. We recently had a WrestleMania, as you know, from WWE. It went from 5 to midnight. There was people complaining about lining. There was people complaining about sleeping. And I follow social media, and I always participate on Twitter. There's people already dropping out. So you got to find that right balance of constant interest through quality while providing a decent amount of quantity. So with that being said,
Sorry to cut
looking
you off.
at
I
go ahead.
gotta get you on one thing here. New Japan, I believe, has the right idea. They recently had a point. They recently reached a point where, holy crap, we have so many things that we have to do for Wrestle Kingdom. We're gonna have to spread this out over 2 days.
Right. And I'm thinking about those strategies applied today in the business, and I'm thinking about what is your guys' plan going forward now, heading into, I think at this point, be your 6th year. Are you going to break down like Immortal per se? Your Gold Rush series, is that going to be played off a little differently? You guys obviously must have like a beginning outline of what you want to start with this, and then you're going to develop storylines through there. So, James, I'm going to start with you on this. What's the outlook going forward for Weymouth Youth Wrestling? What do you want to achieve? What do you feel needs to change?
Well, before I get to that, I do want to talk about Immortal slightly, because to your point, that was a monstrosity, especially with Mania.
Yes.
I said this when I initially found out, oh man, this is going to be 8 hours, because he was even against it, and I know Casey was like thinking, should we really do this? Because we didn't expect it to be 8 hours. It was originally supposed to be 5, but what ended up happening was we recorded all the matches. We realized it went to 8 hours. And then I was thinking, damn it, what are we going to do? We have to cut some stuff out. And then I looked at the whole thing, and then I realized
If we cut anything out, the show's ruined.
if we cut anything out, the show's ruined, and it doesn't. Everything just is wonky at that point. Because and Mike was like, no, this is crazy. And then I said, is it? And the reason I say this is, while it is very hard to maintain somebody's attention, it's a lot easier if every single one of your matches, every single one of your promo packages, every single little detail about that show is full of quality that justifies the quantity. This is something that WrestleMania had the problem with.
15 matches. We have 12.
We had 12.
We had an 8-hour show with 12 matches. They had an 8-hour show with 16. How did a little CAW league that is run by 3 dudes somehow out-wrestle a 16-match, multi-million-dollar company card?
Exactly.
There's the fucking question that needs to be asked.
And now we move to the future, as you asked me, Noah, because I'm always a big proportion that you don't look and be stuck in the past, but you always want to look back to your roots on how you got to where you are today. Now we talk about the future. As far as what the outlook is for 2020, besides a nightmare, yes, is recording, and then by the end of 2020, editing like a mofo. With now, I'm not going to be the only editor. It's going to be him helping me. It's going to be Casey helping me and Nico's helping me. I'm going to have a lot more help, but that's the outlook of what we're going to be doing. I'm going to be primarily editing the matches. They're going to help me with some promo packages that I wouldn't be able to get to, which are actually, believe it or not, the biggest pains in the asses because, yeah, go.
The promo packages is more about how do we give a digital character the ability to gravitate towards the audience and give that audience the ability to look at that character and understand exactly who that character is in under 2.5 minutes.
And also making sure that while you do that, you have them suspend their disbelief and be immersed in that universe.
Which, when you're doing the whole thing out of a video game, is not the easiest thing in the world to do, because there's only so many animations and different things that you have to be able to work with to make this whole thing flow.
Exactly.
We made a counter. about, what would you say, a year and a half ago?
Yes.
Called the Owen Finch Fuck Meter.
Yes.
Where over the course of one episode, 32 fucks were given.
He was so enthralled with the action, he said the F word all 32
And there was one specific match in that entire review that got about 26 of those fucks.
Yes, it did.
Gee.
And that's beside the point. But that's again going to the past. As the future goes right now, we are busting our ass recording matches. We are busting our ass recording for 2021. You've already seen, Noah, the 2021 intro. You've already seen it. This series is a monster and a half.
Okay, I have to put this out there. Noah, you like watching weekly stuff, correct?
Yes.
You now have something to mark in your calendar every single Wednesday for the entirety of 2021.
Before Dynamite and before NXT, we are joining in because, one, everybody thinks we're crazy for this, but one, if we do it before NXT and before Dynamite, we're still getting into that pot of the fans because we want to show this to other fans. So we kind of want to be a part of that revolution, if that makes sense.
That's probably the best way to sum up WYW. WYW is a promotion by fans for fans.
Absolutely.
And if you like content, well, I'll put it like this. So the weekly show is going to be about 2.5 hours maximum.
Yep.
May go over that. We don't know.
And that's maximum. It might not be 2 hours. It might be
done.
2:15. It might be 2.
It will be between 2 and 2.5 hours every single week, and we're going to guarantee that number as much as we can. Part 2, we have a little house show, a little mini series that we're going to be putting out there, which is an extra hour of content, which will probably be based Sundays, just to make it a little bit easier.
Yes.
Which is a day where you just get to sit down and chill out.
Yeah.
And
see
barbarians beat the hell out of each other, or luchadors from all over the world decide to come into one little venue and just go at it, or have legends of professional wrestling just appear, because why the hell not? I mean, I'll give you the example, and this is a story that is 100% true because I found the emails. So, when we decided to start doing WYW, we decided we need a hook, a character that we can bring in that has a lot of wrestling history, is not that well known, but somebody that you could bring in and somebody goes, wait, really? That's an interesting pick. Why? And I remember emailing for days Taka Michinoku. For days, I wanted to ask him, listen, I do this thing. I want to make sure that I have your full permission to use your character, to use your music,
to use your likeness,
if you will. And he said, yeah, go for it. What's the stipulation? And I went, oh no. So here was the stipulation that if you happen to have watched his first round tournament, the first round that he
match.
First round tournament match.
If he didn't beat Chris Foster, he would retire from America and only wrestle for Japan.
I received an email about 2.5 hours after we released that thing from him going,
you asshole.
Are you out of your fucking mind? And I go, but you didn't lose. And he goes,
he's like,
what is wrong with you?
I would have had to honor the stipulation. And I said, did you like the match? Yeah, it was pretty rad. So I got him hooked. And I was like, we got him. That's what I want. I want to hook the audience. I want to engage the audience. That's what we're going to do with 2021.
Which, have you sent him a link for Sean versus Taka yet?
I believe
he's already seen it.
No, have you seen Sean versus Taka Michinoku yet?
I believe I have not yet.
Taka Michinoku, watch this match when we get done with this interview. Taka Michinoku versus Sean Maverick is WYW.
Absolutely, in a nutshell. That's WYW.
You will fall in love with the big, brooding American bastard faster than you could possibly imagine. In one promo package. I promise it. You will go, I bet you already that's does. Really cool.
I bet you he already does. Anyway, that's beside the point. But yeah, no, that's basically the idea. We're going to be doing on top of more outlooks because we got a lot that we're going to be doing in 2021.
For example, tomorrow afternoon, we're going to be meeting with a bunch of other people that voice act characters in the show, and we're going to start figuring out the dialogue side of things for how we're going to tell a year-long story.
I'm going to be telling you right now, the amount of dialogue that what I've been able to calculate is going to be about 20 hours.
Which is fine.
That's the equivalent of a fucking RPG.
And by the way, Noah, for the record, I want you to put this in perspective. We're doing dialogue because some people, and I actually found this out, not just by watching Dynamite, because some guys just work better with the script, but other people work better with an outline. Other people just work better just going off the cuff. But some people do better with the script in front of them. Sean is one of those people. Casey's another one of those people. I know a bunch of people, like Kyle is a good example. He all of his promos were off script, but what I think is missing in a lot of wrestling scripts is emotion in brackets, like how to sound. What is the cadence? I know that's a meme between all of us, but what is the cadence of your delivery on certain lines and certain parts of what you're saying to make it sound legit and believable?
Which is part of how I think I won the gig as Mark Young, but that's a story for another time.
Well, there's only so much in video games you could do with actual gestures of your character. So if you're trying to showcase and bring forth that character to your audience, the best way to do it is dialogue. And you guys, to get a step further, literally doing voice acting and dialogue versus what I've seen by some people that do just create story mode, for example, in just subtle preprint text or just read me. I'm a Zelda video game. So with that being said, gentlemen.
And check this out. How many other CAW leagues do you know that will do live action footage in character?
As of right now, none. Besides y'all, none. Because again, I only have so much time of the week between digital content and media-based content. But I do enjoy following this promotion, and I do support all three of you gentlemen in this journey. You clearly show huge amount of dedication, passion. You definitely have a plan. You definitely have showed a lot of, I think, inspiration for others to pursue this avenue, if not pursue this avenue along with you. And I thank all three of you for your time. With that being said, gentlemen, you talked a lot about your promotion, but is there anything else you would like to share with the viewers that watch this forum about any of you or anything else wrestling related?
So the first thing, obviously, that I want to promote is the channel. If you guys have never seen Weymouth Youth Wrestling before, you don't even know what CAW wrestling is, or you've heard of it, but you've never been intrigued by it, I guarantee you watch the show, you'll have a different tone. We have brought the concept of created wrestler back to a prominent position. Right now, Immortal has over, and I'm serious when I say this, 1,588 views, which is the biggest video that we've ever done collectively that is of that length. That's 8 hours that has gotten over 1,500 views and could reach 2,000 by the end of April, which I really hope would be awesome. If you guys want to see Immortal, youtube.com/user/WYW Pride or Casey's channel, which is
youtube.com. Just look for Luke Lynch. I should pop right up.
Yes, and that's another thing. WYW has been spread around by 3 channels, but even then, Casey's has actually got the most viewed with like 625.
The biggest reason being that it was a premiere and not an actual stream, so there wasn't a whole lot of
test for us. Yes.
See what we can get away with.
And the other channels you can follow also are twitch.tv Weymouth Youth Wrestling. We're going to be streaming those events, the pay-per-views, or should we call them mega events, because you all get to see all of this content for free. Again, we said it before, by the fans. We make no money off this. This is purely for the fan of wrestling to enjoy. So check it out, twitch.tv/Weymouth Youth Wrestling if you're a Twitch user.
Any money we make is purely going to be off merchandise, which
Which is another thing, by the way, I forgot to mention, Noah. We're going to be releasing merch on TeePublic, and we may be also launching an Amino app. Stay tuned to the WYW channel to find out more about that. Also, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to hear about updates about that. YouTube.com/user/JHEBERTSIDE95. Also, we also have a Mixer, Mixer.com/WYW Pride, and we also have a Twitter and an Instagram. Twitter is at Weymouth Youth TC. That's WEYMOUTH Youth TC. All one word. And Instagram is Weymouth Youth Wrestling, all one word. That is pretty much all we need to promote at that juncture. And if you guys like great wrestling, I think this is going to be the show for you, because we're going to bring a lot. We're going to offer something different, along with mixing stuff that's worked in the past and make it into one juggernaut of a show.
Yeah, not bad for a CAW league that had been pretty much declared dead by its creators for about 6 months.
And yet here you all stand. Evolution. Well, with that, gentlemen, I thank you so much for your time, and I wish you the best along this journey. I will certainly be following it, and if you want to do this again sometime, I'd be happy to interview you guys, whether it's in regards to what the current outlook of the promotion is, a scrum after a show, or anything in between, or even a character-based type thing. Please let me know. Time is limited, schedules are tight, but wrestling, always keeps me going, and your digital form is one of a kind that I do follow, and I thank you all for it every day, and it's a good forum, folks, so please, if you haven't checked it out already, please check out Weymouth Youth Wrestling. But with that being said, I thank you, everybody, who tuned in here. Please let us know any questions, comments, anything else you would like to know about these gentlemen in the comments down below. I am just a simple man and a lifelong fan of wrestling. My name is Noah Foster, and until next time, for Weymouth Youth Wrestling, the Archangel James Hubert, for Casey, and for Michael, and for the entire WYW family, I wish them the best. I thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you all have a good night.
Before we end this, Noah, you said thank us, but we have to say one thing to all the fans that have watched Immortal, to all the fans that have watched our show in the past before Immortal. We have one thing to say to everybody, and you, Noah. Thank you.